Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Move with Ivan. And in today's episode, I want to talk about stretching. And so you might be thinking right away is, do I need to stretch? Is it effective? Am I wasting my time? How much stretching should I do? Once a day, 5 times a day, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour? And so, what you maybe should question or ask yourself is how much range of motion do I need to perform daily tasks of active living? So, for example, maybe like I am now, sitting on a couch, can I get up and down and sit on a couch with sufficient range of motion? Obviously, it's involving a lot of joints, so my ankles, my knees, my hips, and so if I want to look at maybe one particular joint, so say for example, my shoulder, right? Can I reach for the cupboard or a cup in the cupboard above with just my shoulder actively, right? Or to get there, do I have to maybe turn my body? And so maybe I don't have sufficient range of motion in that shoulder to reach that cupboard or that glass, sorry. So start thinking that way. You have to kind of go through your daily actions and what you do and consider maybe, do I have sufficient range of motion? And how much do I need in order to perform the tasks effectively? So there's a relationship between your health, your injury, and your performance. Back to the example of the shoulder, if I have to get that cup and I'm doing a lot of twisting and bending through other joints, that maybe shouldn't be doing that, over time they might get injured. So my health will suffer and my performance will suffer. So that should be the question you should be asking yourself is, what do I need? How much range of motion is sufficient for my life? So for my sport could be another question. It's part of my life, so I can also consider that as an important factor. So I should be thinking like this now, and then that's kind of will lead me into what I should be stretching. Another example could be the squat. So if I go to the toilet, which we all do, I would hope every day, and if I'm squatting up and down and I don't have sufficient range of motion, I might have to use other joints above and below in order to accomplish that task. So for example, if I'm squatting onto the toilet and I can't get down, I have to maybe curve my back to get down lower, I might now be compensating my position in order to achieve my objective. And that's not going to be good long term. Once in a while, for the first couple times, it's okay. But imagine doing that years and years and years, you will develop pain and discomfort, and you might actually obtain an injury there and damage to your passive tissues in your verbal column. So keep those things in mind. And there are two things we have to ask ourselves is now, thank you for this great information, Ivan. How do I know how much range of motion I have? So there are two things. There's passive range of motion and active range of motion. So with passive range of motion, we're going to be looking at the range of motion of our joint passively. So with the help of an external force, so it could be your own hand, it could be using an object like a bench, or someone else can be pushing you through that range of motion, versus active range of motion is me using my own muscles to lift my arm. Okay, active range of motion doesn't just involve muscles, it involves all the coordination. So you're telling your muscles, hey, I need you to go up. It's also involving a lot of endurance, a lot of strength. So if I don't have the sufficient strength to do that, I won't be able to lift. Okay, so I can assess myself through a video or have someone else watch me. So it's kind of hard to know exactly how I'm moving because we've done it so many times, it has now become unconscious. We're just unconsciously going through life and performing different tasks without actually maybe knowing how we are doing them. And so there could be imbalances as well. Maybe my left side is better than my right side. And that could be also causing pains and discomfort that you might be having. So you got to start thinking this way and kind of question yourself. If I'm feeling pain in my left lower back, why is that? What's causing that? Maybe should I stretch? And then you might thinking is how much should I stretch or where should I stretch? And maybe by you stretching your back out might actually be causing more harm because you are further stretching those inflamed ligaments, tendons, muscles that actually need rest. So gotta think that way now, okay? So back to the example of passive and active. So if I can actively move my shoulder through its range of motion, reaching up for that cup, then I am also said to have passive sufficiency as well. But for example, if I can't get up there actively, but I can passively, that tells me that I am sufficient passively in that range, in my shoulder, but I can't do it actively. So I haven't trained my body to do that actively. So I need to prepare myself, and maybe I should have a protocol to work on my active range of motion. So me doing a passive stretch like this won't improve my active range of motion, right? Because again, I'm doing this not thinking about it. I'm having someone else do it for me. It feels great. But now when I go back to reaching my cover back home, I can't get there because I haven't trained my body actively. Right? I haven't trained that shoulder actively. Another example would be the hip, right? If I'm bringing my hip into my chest, that's going to be a passive stretch, passive range of motion. And if I let go, can I maintain that same position actively? So a couple degrees is normal between passive and active, but if I'm up here and then I can't actually hold it, that's going to be a cause for concern. So if you are looking to assess yourself, I would recommend putting a video next to you, looking at you from the front, from the side, maybe from behind, and do a simple squat onto a chair, onto a couch, and see at what point maybe do I compensate where I should be compensating. So is my hip properly moving through flexion extension? Can I maintain neutral spine? So doesn't mean I have to have a vertical spine. It can mean that I'm still moving at the hip joint, right? I'm moving at the hip joint, but I'm not curving through the spine. I'm moving my hip to do the work. So when I'm squatting, this is not a bad thing, okay? So keep those things in mind, and I would say try it out. Again, once we do have sufficient active range of motion, for example, my shoulder or my hip, if I'm working on isolating that joint and seeing its active range of motion, I still have to continue to integrate that into a full body movement because again, the body is a unit and it works as a unit. So we can't just train ourselves in isolation. So we have to remember after we have improved our hip range of motion, for example, in flexion, I now have to use that maybe new hip range of motion that I've achieved into an active movement. So that can be trained with a squat, a lunge, a step up. I want to now integrate those patterns into my practice because in life we are continuously moving as a unit. And so we should eventually train as a unit to have, again, the biggest chance of improving our performance and at the same time reducing our injuries. So it's a full circle, and it's important to remember that, guys. Next time you do go stretch, maybe think a little differently. Why am I stretching? What am I trying to achieve? And look at the big picture. All right, guys, thanks for your time, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Ciao for now.